I go hard into every challenge, and I don't give a shit whether that's against my mum, my wife, or my daughter.
Jesus.
Wow.
So, great defender. Not so sure I would want him in my family, but
Serie A is super, super tight. 5 teams within 3 points of each other. So Inter top on 24 points, ahead of Roma only on goal difference. Then it's Milan, Napoli in 4th, and Bologna. We'll start with Napoli. Disappointing goalless draw against Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League. An even more disappointing loss away at Bologna, having drawn 0-0 with Como the week before, and Antonio Conte has taken this well. I mean, in his customary style, actually. Some amazing quotes post this game.
Yeah, talking about his players needing heart transplants, because in his opinion, that's what it's coming down to at this point. It's just a lack of heart from his players.
But Nicky, if they had heart transplants, they wouldn't be able to play. They would be convalescing.
Yes, it's a fair point. I mean, with De Bruyne and Lukaku already missing, does he really want even more players heading to the infirmary? I don't know. But it was an extraordinary game, really, against Bologna, when you think that Bologna had to sub in a 17-year-old keeper, Massimo Pessina, in the 8th minute. And really, he didn't have a lot to do after that. You think, gosh, okay, this kid's coming in. Here's a chance to throw a lot at him right away, and it didn't happen. And it's funny because it feels like only a beat ago that we were talking about them beating Inter 3-1. Really big result on the surface for the title race, and it was the game where Kevin De Bruyne scored a penalty, and then immediately his clutching his hamstring goes off. And to be honest with you, Napoli played well after he went off. McTominay scored a fantastic goal, and people were going, maybe is it going to be better for them without De Bruyne, who was the big showpiece signing of the summer, and as brilliant as he is, and as well as he's played. I don't think anyone was saying he's played badly, but maybe just letting McTominay get back into his slightly more central position and be the player he was last season, maybe that's a good thing for the team. Well, it hasn't proved to be. They haven't scored now in 3 games. They beat Lecce after that 1-0, but the last 3 games they haven't scored in all competitions. And that attack really is starting to look like a bit of a genuine disaster for them. Obviously, Lukaku's injury is what it is. He's out until probably the middle of December is what we're expecting at the moment. Højlund came in at the last minute in the summer and had a bright start, but actually, if anyone needs De Bruyne, I think it was Højlund. Lorenzo Luca, who they signed for, it's on loan to start off with technically, but it's going to add up to somewhere between probably about 35 and 40 million euros. It's a good amount of money for a club like Napoli. Again, Italian football doesn't spend like English football does. That's a good chunk of change. And the last 2 games when they've needed a goal, he's been given something like 11 minutes off the bench. He's that far out of favour already with Conte. So it's really looking quite ugly for them up front. And Conte, again, with these heart transplant comments, also casually dangling that thing he dangled a lot last season, which is, well, last season it was, you remember this team finished 10th last season. This season it's, you remember we finished 10th a year and a bit ago. It feels like a bit of a well, more than a bit of a very tense moment, I think. And look, to be absolutely clear, Conte won the league title last season, their 4th ever. There's not even a whisper of this being something that's he's in trouble, but it is certainly not looking so bright from the point of view of their title defence.
We haven't given Roma much airtime. I'm really interested in how they're doing, actually, because Gasperini had obviously been at Atalanta for so long. And they started so well. I mean, do you believe they could stay the course and be title challengers? Because it's been a hell of a long time.
It has, and what's fascinating with Roma to me is that actually some of the things I've just been saying about Napoli, right? You could say them about Roma. Who have Roma got to play up front this weekend? It ended up with Tommaso Baldanzi, who's a 22-year-old midfielder, having to play up front because everyone is injured. Evan Ferguson, who they signed in the summer and who started kind of brightly. I had high hopes for him, but fundamentally is still running into the Evan Ferguson problem, which is for a long time now, he just hasn't really scored goals. And that's pretty important when you're playing at number 9. Artem Dovbyk, who I I can't remember exactly how many he had. He did get into double figures up front for Roma last season, but again, hasn't been as quite as explosive as everyone hoped for him when he arrived from La Liga. He's now injured as well. He got injured at the weekend. Paulo Dybala, I mean, listen, if you're relying on Paulo Dybala not to be injured, then you've got a problem, because Paulo Dybala is injured about half the time or more. He's brilliant when you've got him, but he's going to be injured a lot. So the attack is mostly just not there. And Sule as well, who's absolutely been brilliant this season. First of all, he's not really a number 9. He is a fantastic footballer. He's not a number 9. And also been dealing with injury. So that there's just nobody there to lead the line. And yet they are still joint top of the table. They are still winning games. They did at the weekend, beating Udinese 2-0. And the obvious answer to that is the defence has been great. They've only conceded 5 goals this season. I think that's the fewest across what we, I guess, still slightly call the top 5 European leagues. I'm never sure if that's a good measure anymore, but it's very convenient journalistically to talk about 5 European leagues, isn't it? They have been really tight at the back, and it is, of course, the name I haven't said yet, Gianpiero Gasperini, success story so far, really. The guy who made Atalanta into this over 9 years, essentially took them from being a mid-table club famous for producing young talent into being a genuine European force, into winning the Europa League, qualifying for the Champions League in 4 of the last 6 seasons. He's been due this chance to, I suppose, lead one of the traditionally bigger clubs. If anything, Roma is on the low end of that big club scale, because, as you say, they don't really win league titles. I mean, they have, but it's not a thing they do very often. And so it was definitely time for him to have this opportunity. He had the one at Inter years ago that barely even got to have, because they kicked him out so quickly before he'd had a chance to settle in, even though it was a very bad start. And it feels like a vindication for him at the moment. It feels like a vindication for him and his ideas. Also, of course, for Claudio Ranieri, who was there last season, did incredible work to get them really close to the Champions League places last season, after taking up in a really messy state. And I think when you look at defensive success like this, it's hard not to think, well, there's a bit of Ranieri's work in there too. They certainly aren't the swashbuckling team that Atalanta have been under Gasperini. They certainly are still playing in a more reserved fashion than that. But I do think that is also just Gasperini being a very smart coach and going, well, look, I haven't got an attack right now, so you play to your strengths, don't you? And I think he's doing a fantastic job. I don't know if they've got that absolute quality to take it all the way this season. I feel like when I look at these teams, it's really hard to look past the quality Inter have and the depth Inter have. They do just look like the best team on paper. They are showing it in the Champions League, where they've been by far the best performing Italian club. It feels like in the end they come out on top. But equally, it's very often been true that the team that concedes the fewest goals wins the league in the end. And right now, Roma are really not conceding many goals at all.
Nicky, I was going to ask, look at, Roma potentially having a title push and this gap being going forward. Are they under some sort of transfer ban? Like, are they able to make signings in this winter window?
They're definitely not under a transfer ban, Roma. They are still under financial fair play restrictions, which mean they have to be within certain loss limits. I believe it's they can't have a bigger than €60 million deficit between until the end of 2027. That sounds like a lot. It can easily get up to those numbers. So, but yeah, they can't spend lavishly in the window. They can spend, but they can't go crazy.
Because I was just thinking, like, who could they bring in? Do you think who's the answer to this problem? Because they clearly do just need someone up front who can sort of take them to that Scudetto level.
Yeah, well, it's never an easy answer, is it? And not a transfer ban, but that they did spend extremely lavishly under Jose Mourinho and in that chapter, and they certainly aren't going to be throwing cash around freely this transfer this winter window. And what's nice, I suppose, in contrast to Conte, is you don't hear Gasperini going, "I want X, Y, and Z." He gets on with it. Who is a centre forward who scores a lot of goals you can have in the middle of a season for not much money? That's a question I bet a lot of sporting directors around Europe are asking. There aren't easy answers to those sorts of questions. You have to get creative. I don't know if someone else has got an idea, but I don't have one, I'm afraid, on that front.
Paul, this is one of the greatest things I've seen in a long, long time. Let's talk about Yerry Mina. You brought this to the table. It is poetry in motion. Take it away.
Honestly, this kind of made Saturday in Serie A worth it, because Saturday's Serie A was so bad, it almost brought about a kind of existential crisis, like these 0-0 draws, 0-0 draw after 0-0 draw. But this Como Cagliari game, which was otherwise quite hard watching, Cagliari had made it very clear they were coming for a point. They got a point. But the moment of the match was watching Alvaro Morata having to ask to be subbed off because Yerry Mina had just so comprehensively shithoused him. So you could kind of see this building, that Mina is one of those defenders who will just wind you up. And Morata was getting nowhere really from him. And then suddenly there's this moment in about, I think, an hour in, where a ball's played through. Morata's not going to get it. You know he's not going to get it, but he has to chase. And Mina looks over his shoulder, sees where Morata's going to run, and just very, very clearly and obviously runs in a way that Morata's going to just touch him, and he goes down like a sack of spuds. Morata gets the yellow card, and Morata's response is just, I can't deal with this. I've got to be subbed off. I think it reminds me a bit, now as a parent, I've got 2 kids, and it reminds me of a moment I get with them where you're just being outplayed by those 2 kids and you're losing your temper, and you just have to say, I just say to my wife, that's it, I'm coming off here. And he's just had that moment. He's like, I've got to go for my own good, for the good of everyone. I've got to go. And after the game, I saw they did an interview with Mina and sort of said, what was going on. And he gives this quote. He said, he says, I go hard into every challenge, and I don't give a shit whether that's against my mum, my wife, or my daughter.
Jesus.
Wow.
So great defender. Not so sure I would want him in my family, but
Was Morata actually subbed?
Yeah, he was. He said, "Can I come off?" And he took him off, which is amazing, really. 60 minutes into a game that's 0-0, and he's one of your main chances of scoring a goal, but he was gone.
It just reminded me of when Papu Gomez was at Atalanta and posting videos of himself playing football with his son, who can't have been older than like 4 or so, on his Instagram, and it was like proper 2-footed on the beach, like not holding back, full 2 feet into his kid.
I just think Yerry Mina should get a trophy for that performance.
Morata should present it to him as well.
Yeah.
yeah. That would be a dynamic I need to see. Yeah, I just think, how many players in their career can say, I got someone to ask to be subbed off? I mean, it is incredible, absolutely incredible. What a feather in the cap.
Quite impressive self-awareness from Morata, because he has absolutely let it get into his head, but a lot of people would just stay there and keep getting more and more wound up. He's kind of gone, okay, I've just been an idiot, and I need to get out of here before I'm even more of an idiot.
Ashley Cole has said that Cristiano Ronaldo once asked to be subbed off back in 2006 when they subbed Chelsea Manchester United, because Cole had been at him all game and gave him a really bad reducer. And Ronaldo, for the only time in his career, actually asked to be subbed, and was subbed by Alex Ferguson. Now, I've wondered if it was because he had actually been injured in this, but Ashley Cole is adamant is because of his shithousery, and it had really got him in his pocket all. And I have to say, when I think the only other player I can think of who has to be subbed is Cristiano Ronaldo, there's something that doesn't sound quite right here. He's not exactly the kind of player you would associate with that.